Hi, my name's Steve. I'm making this video because I've seen a lot of reactions and a lot of talk and a lot of videos online about what happened at Pokemon Go Fest. And I've even had encounters with people since I've gotten home from Pokemon Go Fest that were not very pleasant. There's been a lot of confusion about what happened, and now I've seen that a lot of YouTubers have gone online and posted, what really happened at Pokemon Go Fest or my honest opinions of Pokemon Go Fest. And I agreed with some of them, and I've disagreed with some of them, but they were mostly the ones that I've seen perspectives from people who were able to connect or who had some kind of special access. And people like Trainer Tips were very kind of upfront about that his experience was different from what the average user was like. So this is my take on what the average user experienced. Not to say that I am the average user, but the experience that I had, I feel, was representative of a very large number of players, in the thousands, maybe half of what the players experienced. And some people had experiences worse than what I had. Some people had experiences much better. But I think overall, because so many people had bad experiences at Pokemon Go Fest during the actual festival event, that you can say the bad experiences were almost representative of what happened. So to begin with, travel. You had to get these tickets in advance by a month. They went online, and 6 minutes later they were sold out. So you basically had to be waiting online to get these tickets, just like for a big concert that was going to sell out. And we were able to purchase some tickets. We got 3 tickets. Me and my cousin went. Our friend ended up bailing out on us. We ended up selling the ticket online, the extra one that our friend didn't take. We traveled 10 hours from New York to Chicago. We drove. We had to pay for our gas, etc., etc. Some people obviously had much larger expenses because they came from even further away. Another thing that happened was lodging. A lot of people had to pay for lodging. Most of the time we stayed with family, so we got off pretty well with that too. But I know a lot of people paid a lot of money for hotels, etc. This was essentially their vacation. For some families, it was their family vacation. And the main thing that they were going to do was go to Pokemon Go Fest. It was the same for us. With the exception of, we only really took a few days off because it was in the weekend and we could travel. It was only 10 hours away. We had family to stay with. We did do other events. We checked out the park beforehand, the day before. We went to Grant Park. We saw them setting things up. I took a lot of pictures during the setup. We went and kind of investigated. We were very excited at that point to see what it was that they were building for Pokemon Go Fest. We also went to the Field Museum. We explored downtown Chicago. We did all of those kind of things that you would do to make an event. But the main objective was really Pokemon Go Fest. We missed our 6 o'clock train to line up early for Pokemon Go Fest. We caught the 7 o'clock train. And then we walked from Millennium Station to the line that was forming in front of the sectioned off part of Grant Park that hosted Pokemon Go Fest. This was maybe 7:30 because we got the 7 o'clock train. It took 29 minutes, so we got there at 7:33, and then we had to walk. Then we found the back of the line. It was about to the main fountain in Grant Park. It was about lined up to where that was. We got in line, and as soon as we were in line, after we passed the infamous guy with the goat, if many people in line talked about, took pictures of, saw a man walking a goat in front of the line at Pokemon Go Fest, we were there around the same time as the goat guy showed up. The line almost instantly doubled after we were there. And then from 8 o'clock on, we watched it double again, and eventually it stretched out of sight. By 9 o'clock, when the early release people were coming, I still saw some early release people, and they didn't even seem to know where the early release line to get into the park at 9 o'clock even was. And then between 9 and 10, we kept seeing people coming by, looking at the start of the line, and then they looked a little bit confused, and they're like, are we almost there? And they weren't. They were like a mile from where the line was. I mean, it wrapped all the way around the fountain and back through half the park, and we could see it zigzag, and there was one Niantic or event coordinator person helping direct the line, but the people were just in shock. So if anything I can criticize the community for, which I'm not here to criticize the community, if there's going to be 20,000 people in an event and you show up 10 minutes before the event, the line is not going to be anywhere near the entrance. And your shocked expressions are kind of silly. Because 20,000 is a lot of people. And maybe some people had a hard time imagining how many people were actually going to be at the Go Fest. We had maybe not even a 45-minute wait to get in. It wasn't that bad. It didn't start moving right at 10 because I heard that the early release people were still trying to get in. So those would be the Sprint customers that went and got the extra wristband, the yellow wristband. We're still trying to get in at 10 o'clock. So it took a while for us regular people to start getting in because the early access line was still moving. As soon as we got in, before we got in, there were connectivity problems like crazy. But I assumed that that's because the cell networks were overwhelmed and that inside the park there would be Wi-Fi. The Sylph Road reported that in the permit for the Go Fest, Niantic requested, as part of their permit, to be able to bring in Wi-Fi equipment. I don't know what happened, but that didn't happen. And I believed that was going to happen. As soon as we got in, my cousin who was with me had continually had the connectivity problems we had outside the park. I was able to connect. I got my QR code. And when I got my QR code, I went to the very first Pokestop that was by the gate. That probably wasn't the best idea because that's where everybody went to get that first Pokestop. I hit that Pokestop. It came up with a QR code. I put in my QR code. I activated it, and I got in very early on in the festival. There weren't a ton of people in yet. There were all the early release people and maybe like the first 5% of the line we were in. And it moved fairly quickly. The connectivity problems actually only got worse from then. Actually, the early part of the festival was when I had some of my best connectivity, and as people came in, the connectivity was quickly overwhelmed. And what I'm talking about, the level of connectivity problems that we had were in 7 hours that we stayed there from 10:30 to about 5:30. We were inside the gate. We didn't leave for lunch or anything like that. We had lunch in the park. We continued to try. There were times when I put my phone away and didn't try, but throughout that day, there were 5 hours, 6 hours plus of just looking at my screen. And of those, I got maybe 20 minutes of play time, but that time was a miserable experience. You would even look at a Pokemon, a Rattata, and click on it, and your game would crash. You would spend 5 minutes getting your game back up, and it would crash. Just rotating the screen to see around your avatar, to see around a Pokestop. Just rotating the view overwhelmed it and crashed. Some people could not connect at all. At 7 o'clock that night, we were doing legendary raids that were unleashed, and we talked to somebody who still had not entered their QR code. Had not been able to connect to even get their QR code. I think that was pretty extreme. But at the end of the event, they did announce that 4% of people that were there still hadn't been able to even put in their QR code, which means they hadn't even been able to start the event. So 1 out of 20 people at the end of 7 hours could not even start the event. They had not been able to get online for even 1 second. Nothing. Not been able to spin one Pokestop to put in the QR code. And that, I think, is one of the real problems when everyone's saying people are being too negative, or, there were some technical glitches or technical hiccups. Reversal said hiccups. There were hiccups. Yeah, there were technical hiccups at this festival to play Pokemon Go, in the same way that there were a couple of small technical issues with the Titanic. It failed to do the main thing that it was supposed to do. Most players couldn't play the game practically at all, practically the entire time. So that's not a hiccup. On a technical level, it failed. Regardless of what happened with the community and things that happened later, and I want to address that, but it was a failure. I saw, and this is what I haven't heard on other YouTube channels, I saw people taking it in really good spirits, and I saw some people that were really mad. There was a guy next to me that I can see. Lachlan put up some footage, and I can hear the guy's voice, and I was talking to that same guy. How I never saw Lachlan. Lachlan, where were you? Like, I must have been close to you, because I was right next to that same guy. I can hear his exact voice, and that guy was very loud and outspoken. That guy was very angry. My cousin, he's a very angry person. He was angry. He was very angry. When John Hankey was on stage signing autographs, he came up to him, and when John Hankey asked him, like, what do you want me to sign, son? He was like, I don't want you to sign anything. I want my money back. He pulled like a Margaret Thatcher. Like, I want my money back. That wasn't a good encounter, probably because he was angry, and that was a little bit hostile and negative. But it kind of was what it was. When he was booed off stage, a lot of people said, oh, we thought the booing was inappropriate. How so? Like, he is the CEO of a company that's had $1.3 billion in sales. I realize all of that doesn't go to Niantic, that Google and the Pokemon Company and Nintendo all get their slice of that revenue, and that, you know, also Apple gets a slice of that revenue that comes through the App Store. I realize that they didn't make $1.3 billion, but that's the number that's reported for how much has been spent by customers on Pokemon Go. So when you have a business that comes, and like last year its revenue was zero because it didn't exist, and then in the last year it's been 1.3 billion and the game is still going strong, you would think that they would have the resources and the planning. And especially, these are the people that worked on Google Maps and Google Earth and Google Street View, so they've been part of the biggest tech company in the world. People would argue is Google up there with Apple or Amazon or Microsoft. These are people who had an internal spin-off from that division of Google. They should know they should have the best engineers, they should have the brightest minds. And if you had told me, who doesn't have a background in engineering or networking, I studied computer science for 2 years in community college. If you had told me like what their technical plan setup was, I would be like, this is totally going to fail right off the bat. I only expected it to succeed because I thought that they would have had one of two solutions. Either have the mobile... Wait for that to pass. Either have the mobile cell towers, which is the solution that was talked about at the fest by the company, or have mobile Wi-Fi and direct T1 connection, something like that, which is the solution that I heard most talked about by the fans and the players. Neither of those were there. On a human level, I think that the water bottle being thrown, which is another infamous event, yes, I disagree with that because the spokeswoman was doing her job. It was not an easy job. I don't agree with what she said, but I feel very bad that she could have been hit by that. She could have been hurt. That's not okay. It's never okay to assault someone because you're frustrated at something that's happening with their company. So whoever did that, you're completely out of line. You were venting your frustration. You're not allowed to hurt people. You're not allowed to assault somebody. And that was really, really out of line. The booing, though, quite frankly, at an event like that, when something like that happens, I mean, yes, you boo. That's completely acceptable. I think everybody is saying that was too negative is not really realistic. This happens at concerts and other events as well. Some of the human stuff that I think hasn't been talked about on YouTube is the kids. There were a lot of adults there, and we handled it pretty well, I thought. A lot of the kids, the younger ones, 5, 10, especially on the younger side, they didn't really understand what was happening. They don't understand these technical issues. They don't get how cell towers work. They just want to play Pokemon. And when they couldn't play Pokemon at all, and this was maybe their family vacation, mom or dad took them to Chicago, and the highlight of it was going to be playing Pokemon because a lot of families play together, and they couldn't. That was really bad. One kid I saw, his name was Oliver. Oliver was really upset. I think he was crying. I saw another kid, and what he said to his dad was, I can't get any Pokemon. I just can't play. His dad was kind of rubbing his shoulder and hugging him, and he was crying. There were real tears coming down his face, and the guy was saying, I know, buddy, but there's nothing we can do. So Niantic, that's what your fans experience. And as far as the YouTubers go, when you've got, Mystic 7 going out there being like, hype, 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 and you have a little kid crying, like, the two things are so disconnected, and then it's like, oh, why are you guys being so negative? I'm here for the community. Like, the community is like little kids that are in tears because, like, they can't play Pokemon at all day. They didn't connect. Like, when you're bragging about how many unknowns you've caught, like, and I can't catch a Rattata, like, I'm not gonna be like, yeah, that's so hype. I'm so glad that there are so many unknowns here that I cannot connect to the game. And if it was just me, I'd be like, well, my phone is screwed. But, like, there's 8,000 people. There's whole fields of people. And none of them can connect. And sometimes I saw people that traveled across the world with some of their friends who are on different networks, and the people who are on Sprint or networks connected to Sprint could connect. And then there was like a divide. Like, these people wanted to play with their friends, and their friends couldn't load. And I saw one guy being like, oh, well, we'll just wait on him. The guy's like, no, go out in the park and play, dude. This is what we came for. Like, I don't want you to miss out because I'm missing out. So you were even causing divisions amongst friends, amongst family. There was a divide between the players that could connect and couldn't, and that was really corrosive to the community. So this technical failure wasn't just like an oopsie. It really did affect, like, how people enjoyed the entire day. And I think if you can remember how that early part of the day and most of the day at the fest went, that's good to keep in mind that nothing that happened afterwards made up for that. Now, afterwards, it was said that everyone was getting a refund. I agree with that completely. Most people that were there, I think, probably paid a little bit more than $20. I didn't. Personally, I got my tickets for $20. My cousin got his tickets for $20. We sold one of the tickets, so I assume that guy will get a refund at least for the $20. Everybody else that paid more on the aftermarket for them, you'll get $20 back, basically. And there's nothing that Niantic can do about that, the fact that you paid more to somebody that was selling it for more. There's nothing that the company can do. Then the other issue is the 100 Poke Coins. We got promised $100 worth of Poke Coins. 100 Poke Coins really wouldn't cut it. $100 worth of Poke Coins. A lot of people spent more than $100 to travel there, which isn't to say that it's not a good thing that Niantic did that, but I think for some of the people that were locals, that was like, okay, great. And for some of the people that travel from further away, they're like, eh. And then if you travel from Sweden, which a guy that my cousin was playing with, talking to when he couldn't play, was from Sweden, not so great. If you were from far away, like Lachlan, and you had to travel all that way from Australia, that's a really long, really expensive trip. He was sponsored by Niantic, but most people, and there were other Aussies. I met other Aussies there, so hi guys, if you see this. They really were talking about, 20 some odd hour plane rides and $1,000 tickets, and you really start to get into, okay, you're giving me $100 in Poke Coins. $100 Australian or $100 American, not in euros, right? Or Canadian dollars if you came from Canada. How you figure that out, because there's different exchange rates. There wasn't a flat amount of Poke Coins mentioned. Then the final issue was Lugia. They had said earlier that the radius had been expanded out 2 miles. But still nobody left the park because they were still interested in that legendary raid. But people were still angry because they knew once that legendary raid came, they would not be able to participate. Because I thought the same thing. I was like, maybe I'll stay hoping that I can connect. But at that moment, when you try to connect to that legendary raid, that's going to be when the most traffic is in the most place because everybody wants that legendary. So then when it was said that you were credited with it, there was no longer any reason to stay in the park, as in the part of the park that was officially Pokemon Go Fest territory. And at that point, virtually everyone left. I wasn't in the park at 7 o'clock because we left after that announcement. Everybody left. There was no point in staying there. It was just awful. But I saw pictures at 7 o'clock and there was nobody in there. It was a wasteland. After that, to me, is when the real Pokemon Go Fest started. We went out. As soon as we got out, we could connect a little bit. We walked a little bit down the street. We could connect enough to catch Pokemon. My cousin got nothing in the park, basically. He caught a few Pokemon. I caught 7. In 7 hours, I got 7 Pokemon. I did catch a Heracross, and I did catch an Unknown Sea. And the Unknown Sea then completed my Pokedex, except for the regionals. And I have, 2 of the regionals, because I have Tauros and I have Heracross, and I have Mr. Mime from my travels in Europe. Catching that Unknown was finishing my Pokedex. That's kind of the dream of all Pokemon players. Got to catch them all. So that should have been the best moment of me ever playing the game. It was the worst moment. It was the worst moment. It was the most unfun, unhappy, stressful, bad moment. So the moment that should have been the best moment was the worst moment, because what happened is I had a good connection in one part of the park. I heard that there were better spawns at this other part, so I walked to where they said this unknown was. I got there, so they were spawned for half an hour. Click on the unknown, crash. Reload the phone, try to click on the unknown, crash. Reload the phone, try to click on the unknown, crash. Reload the phone, try to click on the unknown, crash. I got 5 crashes, 6 crashes, 7 crashes, and it takes me a minute to reload the phone each time. By the 10th one, people were trying to talk to me. I'm like, just don't talk to me. And then they say, we want to go somewhere else. I said, no, I'm going to stand in this spot, and I'm going to keep reloading this, and I'm going to keep trying to catch it until it despawns or I go crazy or I catch it. I'm just going to stay here. Well, then I've got a dozen crashes. And I was saying 12 crashes, 13 crashes, 19 crashes. On the 20th one, literally I counted, so this is not hyperbole. On the 20th one, I caught it. Now, after I caught it, it did crash. But I caught it. So I named him 19 Crashes, because I went through 19 crashes to get him. On the 20th load, I got him. So 19 Crashes is the nickname of the Pokemon that completed my Pokedex. And I love him, but I hated it at the moment. After that, I was just so stressed out and not having any fun that it was awful. It was really just awful. Now, afterwards, the after event. This is where I say people have been in good spirits despite all the technical glitches. And by technical glitches, I mean not being able to play the game at all for over 7 hours. When they announced that everyone was being credited with the Lugia, everyone left the park. I mean, everybody left. We poured out in the streets, and as we got further away from the park, more and more we could play. My cousin was able to catch his Heracross, and then we were able to catch the unknowns. We didn't know about Chicago at the time, so if you don't know, the unknowns that were released were Chiago. You would use them to spell Chicago. We didn't know that until later. We were just like, whoa, there's another one. I thought one was a Z, because G kind of looks like a Z, I guess. We were able to catch them, and then we were able to catch multiple of them, and then we saw Porygon, we saw Abras, we saw Machamps. We left the park completely, because even being anywhere in the park, even being in Millennium Park, anywhere in that park, we were getting still really shoddy and crashing. It was not nearly as bad as in Pokemon Fest, but it was bad. Once we got downtown, now there was a few problems that we had downtown with the GPS, but that's just what people in downtown Chicago experience all the time. We did start catching them at very good rates, especially Unknown. Unknown was showing up, and we were catching more and more of them. Like I said, we didn't know about Chicago, so we were trying to catch as many as we can. I ended up catching, I think, 11, including all of them. My cousin never got the C, because the C that I got was the one in the park. But we caught all the other ones. We caught lots of Horrorcrosses. Didn't catch any ones with great IVs, but I did catch one that was a high CP and is 76. I named him Grant because I found him in Grant Park, and I put a lot of all the Horrorcross candy I got. I pumped into Grant. He's like 2400 CP now. He's definitely kind of the best thing that I got. You would say, wait, weren't you there for the legendary raids? We were. We went and we roamed around the streets for hours playing the game, having a ton of fun. The fest was over, and we saw all these people. I mean, the whole downtown Chicago was just flooded with people. And it went from the worst experience to the best experience. And that's where I say the company failed and the community succeeded. Because, yes, the company opened up the network or opened up the radius for 2 miles to allow that to happen as an engineering and social solution. Sorry, I'm adjust the camera. But then the people took that awful day and created this great day with it, because now that the event actually could be played, people went out and they were in good spirits, and there's just this release of tension and this dystopia, this horror show, this hell of unfunness that Niantic had created, where they're like, oh, you can't play the game? Like, go get your picture taken with Snorlax while we brag about, while we lie to you about all these things, like changing the numbers live on stage. Like, oh, you guys, which team is winning? None of the teams can connect. It's like the war is winning, and it will go on winning. The glitches are winning. Team Glitch is winning, and it's gonna go on winning. So shut up. But once we got out of that hellish situation with like the 1984 propaganda from Niantic going on, we went out and it was like the real Pokemon Go community. It was as exciting as launch week, but with players that were really dedicated and had been through like this terrible experience, which, as you know, like everybody bonds. So it's like we were all kind of bonded together at that point. And every corner you turned, wherever you went in downtown Chicago, I mean, there were just players, dozens, 20, 30, 40, just everywhere. You know, the Unknown's that way, the Horrorcross is that way, like there's a Porygon, there were tons of Abra spawns, tons of Abras. I got like 100 Abra candy. That part was really cool. They still had a lot of peanut berries, had a lot of everything because we didn't use them at the fest. We went and got some deep dish Chicago-style pizza, so shout out to Pisano's. That place is really great. Good beer, good local beer, good atmosphere. All the pasta dishes look great. I didn't have any of them because I wanted a deep dish pizza to bring home to New York. And great service, cute bartender. It was just a great place. Like everything about it was awesome, so shout out to them. That was my Chicago-style pizza experience. And then while we were there, I was on Twitter, and then I got on the game, and then it's like, okay, the Lugia raid is going on at the fountain. That was like the first one that they did. And then it was like, oh, we got to go to this Lugia raid. And then all of a sudden there's more, and there's more, and there's Articuno, and there's more, and the whole city. It's like, oh, there's 5 of them. Oh, there's 6 of them. Oh, there's 18. Oh, there's 23. And one of them is not a legendary, but the other 22 are. So we went out into the city, and we just started doing legendary raids. And even at that point, we ran into a guy who still couldn't get his QR code into a Pokestop. Felt real bad for that guy. Like, we feel really bad for you. Like, we're going to go fight this Lugia now. Got the Lugia, beat him. He just got in, and there were instantly 20 people playing. The green circle was around him. So somebody told me, like, hey, Pinat Berry him because he's 100% catch. I was like, all right. So I throw a Pinat Berry, and boom, I've got 12 candy. It was amazing. Then we got Articuno. Had to go up quite a ways, go up past Trump Tower. Hi, Trump. Got an Articuno, started doing more raids that night, and it was just amazing. Everywhere we went, every place that there was, for the entire time, there were just, 20 people would get together in a group and catch it, 20 people would get together in a group and catch it, 20 people would get together in a group and catch it. That part was great, and it was such a relief, and it was such a change from what happened at the park. But I still can never say that the Pokemon Go Fest itself, if you would think of it as the official event that Niantic planned, it was a failure. It was completely a failure. The technical solutions that they provided in the end were 7 hours late and basically meant their solution to Pokemon Go Fest working is leave Pokemon Go Fest. That's their solution. That's their actual technical solution that they came up with. Their real technical solution is leave the festival. It's over. It was ridiculous. The Afterfest and the community were great. And about the YouTubers, some people, especially I heard in Nick's video, there was a reaction that people were telling him he had to do something to fix it. Completely unfair. Nick is the best guy in the Pokemon Go community. I think he's just the best guy. Like, I love watching his videos. He's very humble. He's extremely intelligent. He's just like such a nice person, and he does so much for the community. He really does. I think without him, even that, he gets sources from other people and tips and so forth, but he puts it in a package that I think people just really enjoy it. I really enjoy it. I really enjoy who he is as a person, as a representative of this community. I know other people like Mystic, like his style is not a style that I can get behind. And I really dislike the way that he acted because he was with that Niantic crew on stage. And yes, I understand that they tried to keep it positive. However, like, it was a little bit tone deaf. And I just think, like, not even saying he's a bad person as a person. I don't think that. I think that that there's when you're trying to hype something and something goes wrong, then it just sounds like you're spewing propaganda and you're spewing the company line. You're, of course, entitled to your opinion if you're having a good time, but, like, he said, well, I did this as a representation of the community. Understandable. And props to you for getting 1 million subs, and props to you for getting sponsored by Niantic, but it just seems like, are you being objective? Like, if you there's an appearance, even if there's like, hey, there's my Pokemon shirt. Even if there's no impropriety, there's the appearance of impropriety, right? It seems like it is, and I haven't watched I don't think Mystic has posted like what really happened at Pokemon Go Fest video. I have read some of the tweets and things that he put out, and the two responses that I really liked were Nick from Trainer Tips and Lachlan. But maybe I'm biased because when I first started playing Pokemon Go, Lachlan was like my favorite YouTuber to watch. And not that I don't still love you, Lachlan, still do. But then later on, like, I discovered Trainer Tips, and that got more into like the meta game and like the real details of like how to be good at Pokemon. Where Lachlan's is more like, let's go on an adventure. What can we find? Let's fill the Pokedex. Like, it's not very technical. Like, Nick is like, how will we do this gym battle, and what are the percentages, and all of those really technical details. They're a lot of fun there too. So it's those two guys to me really represent the two sides to Pokemon. Like, the one is just like, go out and have this great adventure, and the other is like, how do you be like the very best Pokemon? And I love them both for like different things in that. I've watched both of their response videos, and I really like that they were honest. They weren't dark and negative. They weren't overblowing it, but they weren't defending the company either. They were kind of giving an honest analysis, because the company did do some things right, and the problem is they failed at the one thing that they had to do, and nothing else matters. Like, all the other things that they had planned were cool. Like, those challenge windows were cool, but like, when you could never connect the whole day, those challenge windows didn't matter. And when you go on stage hyping up those challenge windows, and then people can see you editing it on the computer, and then you're just lying, saying that people, oh, guys, you met all your challenges, even though, like, Sylph Road just posted a picture of somebody on a computer editing those challenges. Like, here I am smiling and lying to you. That was, I think, the kind of worst part. And it's not that they shouldn't have stayed positive. I'm totally for that, and the Pokemon Go community is a very positive place. I love the people that represent it. I've got a lot of love for everybody, and everywhere I go, I meet great people playing Pokemon Go of every race, gender, religion, age, experience, people that didn't know anything about Pokemon before Pokemon Go, people who played it as kids, kids that play it now, people that aren't normally associated with video games, families, single people. I mean, everything. It's so great. There is a community like that. But Niantic, you've let us down so many times. You've driven us crazy so many times. You've been unprepared so many times, and this is like, you had one job. You had one job. And you picked the time, the place, the location. Everything about GoFest was designed by you. And you caused the problem. You caused the data bottleneck by the way that you designed the festival. Quite frankly, the solution that they had at the end, and I think Lachlan and I think maybe Reversal have said this, that should have maybe been the design the whole time. And I thought so too. Have a central place to check in, but maybe have various places around the city that can be part of it, and then just let people wander around between it instead of trying to have the security line and the gate check and putting everybody into one place. So in the end, I think the design of the solution should have been the design to the problem in the first place. What they did in the end maybe should have been what they did in the start, because they didn't prepare for what they were doing to be a success, and that was the problem, and that's an unforgivable problem. So yeah, no matter if some people had a good experience and were able to log on, I know personally if I had been able to log on and had a good experience catching Pokemon, but my friends didn't, or I saw little kids that were unhappy, and maybe people were so buried in their phone catching unknowns they didn't see the little kids next to them crying. But I wouldn't have had a fun time or been okay with it, even if I had caught more than 7 Pokemon, and I didn't catch more than 7 Pokemon. In the end, I have Articuno, I have Lugia, I have Unknown, I have all the letters of Chicago for Unknown, I have Horrocross, I have some good ones. I say Heracross, Horrocross sometimes. And I had a lot of fun, and Chicago is a great place, and I don't regret this trip, and actually I'm really glad that I was there. However, I don't think anybody right now should be attacking members of the community or really defending Niantic. To me, it doesn't terribly matter that they've done and tried things to make up. Of course they should. That's only justified. That's not admirable. People said, oh, well, great on John Hankey for staying there and signing autographs, that's great. But what I want from John Henke is not him to sign an autograph. I want him to manage the company better than this. That's all. I don't need all of the extra things. I don't want my picture with Snorlax. I might. I kind of look like Snorlax anyway, so it'd be like twinsies. I don't really need my picture taken with Snorlax. I just need to catch one. So that's really what it comes down to at the event. I really feel that the community is what should be defended, not the company. I want the company to succeed. I'm not against the company. I'm not being negative. But I just hear people saying things that are very untrue, or when we talk about how bad things were, some people in our play group, well, really not in the play group, just somebody that showed up at a raid yesterday said, oh, you're lying. None of that ever happened. And the next time that happens, because that guy said he was on AT&T and had no connectivity problems, and we came back early from the fest, and he was here already back in New York before us. So the next time that happens, I want to see your medal. I want to see the medal that you had from Chicago before we discuss, like, you're going to tell me what happened at GoFest. Didn't happen that I saw. And he said, oh, well, the connectivity problems that I had weren't that bad. I said, okay, but you didn't notice the 8,000 other players completely surrounding you that were having problems? You just didn't even notice that they were there? It's like I got lied to enough. I got lied to enough by Niantic. I don't now need, like, people trolling and saying, like, things that didn't happen, blah, 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 blah. If you want to have a different opinion on it, of course. I'm very open to hearing other people's opinions. Different people had different experiences. Like, if you were a guest there and you were mostly signing autographs, you know, of course you had a different experience. And not everyone at Niantic is the devil, and they certainly did not. They definitely deserved, in my opinion, the booze, but they did not deserve to have anything thrown at them. They're employees of a company. Everything's stressful. If you've worked at any place, at a restaurant, at an office, in a retail setting, in any kind of emergency setting, like, you know, like, there's just horrible, stressful times when things don't go right, and it's not your fault, and your company or your store or whatever is overwhelmed. And if you've never been through an experience like that, then you can't, I guess, have a lot of empathy for what the people had to go through. As I said, I think a little bit of it was just tone deafness, because they were kind of staying on script for a while, and, like, rightfully so, trying to stay positive. However, it came across as a little tone deaf when you have the issues, like I was saying, like people flying in from Sweden and Australia, people not being able to connect, people not being able to play with their friends, kids crying, small families, or families, their vacations ruined, people that spent thousands of dollars to travel because of all the things that were promised in this festival and they didn't get to do it. And the fact that the most amazing, because the after party, the after fest, running around Chicago all night catching Pokemon and just meeting incredible people, and I talked to a lot of people that were really knowledgeable and knew more things about the game than I did. That was amazing. But it doesn't change the fact that the festival itself, from what Niantic promised us and what Niantic planned and what Niantic wanted and what everybody wanted from it, was a failure, and that they had to scrap their plan. They had to basically scrap the festival and redesign it from scratch as the only way to get it to work, because they had no solution to any of the technical problems. The 3 problems that they identified, like at 11 o'clock, were not solved by 7 o'clock. They wouldn't even be solved now if the fest was going on. They just had to go into their computers, fudge numbers to say we fixed the challenge, change the radius of the festival, and then basically cancel it. They had to scrap their release that they were planning of legendaries and then just release them. They had to totally change their plans, and that proves that their plans and what they had going on failed. Pokemon Go Fest was a failure. The Pokemon community is a success. Everybody that went out into the streets, that was, after 7 hours of suffering through things, whether they were having some connectivity problems, couldn't connect at all, or were on Sprint and God bless them could catch things, they went out into the streets then, and then they made that city like a living community of people playing a game and really sharing their passions, and that was great. That was beautiful. That was the real Pokemon Go Fest. But it doesn't change the fact that the fest itself was a failure, even if the whole weekend wasn't a failure, and even if the things after the fest have been successful. So I'm going to stop there, because Double XP is going for another 72 hours, however long maybe when I post this video. But that's my take on Pokemon Go Fest, and I still have a lot of love to the YouTubers out there, and it wasn't their fault. And thank you guys for representing the community so well, and thanks everybody else in the community. Maybe this long rant from this random guy online will give you some insight into what really happened. So, thank you.